Yo, what is going on, guys? Flashverse here, and welcome back to another video on The Flash Season 7. And today's video will be a theory video in regards to future Barry being obsessed with the future, and whether or not will we be seeing the storyline established during The Flash Season 7. So as of now, we are 7 episodes into The Flash Season 7. 3 of which were obviously to wrap up the season 6 storyline, and then the remaining 4 is the new storyline, that being graphic novel number 3 with the Forces, where we find out that the Speed Force is not the only cosmic source of energy out there, but there are 3 others, those obviously being the Strength Force, the Still Force, and the Sage Force. Yeah, we are slowly getting near the end of this storyline. The end will obviously be episode 11. But another thing which we are nearing the end to is this 2-week break. Thank God. We will be picking back up from where we left off during episode 7, which was a heavily Killer Frost centered episode, and it was obviously a filler episode. And by the end of that episode, Killer Frost ends up getting arrested as she turns herself into the CCPD to basically pay for her past crimes. And picking up with episode 8, we will be dealing with Frost's trial, and we will be seeing whether she will be guilty and be sent to prison, or whether she will be not guilty and just simply walk away, living her life as normal. Personally, for me, I think she will go to prison, and that is so it's easier to balance out Frost and Caitlin, and so it doesn't end up becoming a pain in the backside for Danielle Panabaker to continuously be filming 2 different characters during the same scene. But as we are midway into this graphic novel, we will be picking up with our Forces storyline, so we will be getting more of that, and I'm guessing we will be getting a main villain reveal by the end of episode 8, in which the synopsis for episode 8 does give us a hint to who the main villain could be, and the synopsis for episode 9 pretty much confirms who it is. And speaking of episode 8, The Flash is finally back next Tuesday. So yeah, we are finally getting the Flash back, and we are very, very close for that villain reveal. Now, although we have this Force Quest storyline being like the main storyline for the season for graphic novel number 3, and after that it seems like we'll be having Godspeed as our main villain for graphic novel number 4, we did also have like a couple of interesting teases and reveals which could hint to what they're going for, maybe during the back half of the season, maybe during season 8 or even season 9. And one of those teases was Barry's obsession with the future. So for this video, I'll be theorizing about what this could mean and why it is that Barry ends up becoming obsessed with the future. But just before I get into anything, however, please do take into account that this is just a theory video, so please do not take what I am saying as a way to get excited, because if I am wrong, in which it's highly likely that I am, and this doesn't end up happening, or if the outcome is different, there is a huge chance that you guys could end up getting disappointed, and I just don't want that to happen. So please remember, guys, this is just a theory. And secondly, be sure to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel so you are aware of more Arrowverse content coming your way. Now, if we take a trip back to season 7 episode 7 titled Central City Strong, we obviously had the villain Abracadabra return, and as we know, he is from the 64th century, so he has knowledge of everything related to the events prior to the 64th century, meaning he would know most things about the Flash, probably even more, because Kadabra knows what the Flash's future is like, since he is from the future after all, whereas Barry is from the 21st century. And it is important to pay attention to the future name drops and teases which Kadabra gives us, because these events which he's talking about are in our timeline and has potential to be explored sometime in the near future. And as we go into episode 4 of season 7, Kadabra obviously begins to mention things about him having memories of this life, which he never remembers. But his memories have been expanding, and he's been getting these pre-crisis flashbacks due to him being exposed to something called neurotemporal displacement, which is something created when speedsters mess with time. And then he goes on to mention this clue which led him to the Flash Museum, where he came across the Martian Manhunter ring, and then he ends up fixing this, and then he ends up getting his pre-crisis memories back, in which Kadabra then reveals that future Barry becomes obsessed with the future. And the fact that he's name dropped this now kind of seems like it will be happening sometime in the near future, like it is very close to the Barry we have right now. So yeah, I do have a couple of theories to why I think Barry will end up becoming obsessed with the future. So firstly, if we have a look at this conversation from Kadabra, he doesn't specifically mention that he was reliving these memories out of the blue. He clearly said that he was being exposed to neurotemporal displacement, the kind speedsters use, resulted him into getting these flashbacks of a multiversal timeline which no longer exists. In which you can blame Crisis for this because it ends up changing the timeline. But if you think about it, if this whole other world existed prior to Earth Prime, how could you just be reliving memories out of the blue if technically it no longer exists due to the event of Crisis on Infinite Earths? Kind of like the original timeline or pre-Flashpoint and all the other timelines which Barry or someone else has screwed up. So I found this quite interesting, and when you go deeper into what Kadabra said, Crisis doesn't seem like the reason for Kadabra reliving a life he doesn't remember. But it seems like it's something future Barry does with the timeline, which results into Kadabra getting these pre-Crisis flashbacks and then him remembering once he ends up using the Crisis Martian ring. But because Kadabra was exposed to neurotemporal displacement, he ends up blaming Barry due to what has happened, because he doesn't know about Crisis, since he isn't a Paragon, and once he uses the ring, the only thing he would remember is him being wiped out due to the antimatter, because he wouldn't have known that the whole multiverse was just going to cease to exist. So the only blame he could put is to Barry, because he's been exposed to something which speedsters use. So I could be wrong about this, but what if future Barry ends up doing something time travel related which results into him, let's say, breaking the timeline, kind of like what happened with Flashpoint, where Wally and Edward Claris were getting these memories that they don't really remember living, but in the case of this, it wouldn't be alchemy making them relive those memories, they would just be getting it somehow. So Barry ends up breaking the timeline, which results to people having these real life hallucinations of a life that they had pre-Crisis. And maybe the reason to why Barry becomes obsessed with the future is that he could simply be trying to stop this from happening. So he would be studying the future in order to see where these fractures in time are, and maybe he tries fixing them somehow. I'm not sure. This theory seems to be way too far-fetched to be true, or maybe like end up happening. But another idea or theory I have towards Barry's obsession with the future, and it's less far-fetched, it's more possible than the other one, is that there will be something happening with the future. Maybe it's like a threat that does something to the timeline, and since Barry, in context to the future, is from the past, there are still days or even years to when a specific event could result into something catastrophic. And maybe Barry's obsession with the future could be him studying these threats or events, and he tries to go against the timeline, trying to prevent that from happening, and he does so, and because that future that he ends up changing ends up becoming better, he goes on to pretty much fix other threatening events which end up happening, and he ends up making those better, and that's where the obsession could slowly start. Now, if something like this was to actually happen, I would say this second theory is a lot more possible than the first one, despite both of them being kind of like, off the wall. But if they were to actually follow through with something like this, I would say my second theory is probably the most likeliest option they would go for. Although these theories probably may not happening, I still find this teaser of Barry becoming obsessed with the future very, very interesting, and I really hope that they do go back to that, or maybe like establish this story, because I personally think that it would be a really cool storyline to explore, and just like seeing Barry study the future and like maybe like change the event or do whatever he wants to do with the future by studying them. I just feel like this is such an interesting storyline to explore, and because this was something Abracadabra has teased after all, I do think we will be getting a version to Barry's obsession with the future, or we'll slowly be getting this start to Barry's obsession with the future. But I just think this storyline is very, very interesting. It's very unique because it's Barry actually like, studying the future and like, seeing these different events and him acting upon whatever he's going to do after studying the future. But also, everyone loves it when Barry does something time travel related, or when the show even does something time travel related. It's just something very interesting. So I do really hope that they go back to this teaser or maybe establish the story, because as I said, I just think this would be a really, really cool storyline to explore. And because it has been a teaser which the show has used, never say never. Maybe this may end up happening. Maybe this storyline could start during the back half of the season. Maybe it could start during season 8. We don't know. But as I've said, since Abracadabra has teased it, never say never. It might end up happening. But yeah guys, thanks for watching. If you guys have enjoyed the video, please give a like and subscribe. Be sure to tell me in the comment section down below whether you guys have some theories towards Barry's obsession with the future. You guys know I do read my comments, so I am interested to see what you guys have to say about this. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video.